Hey everyone, and welcome. I am absolutely thrilled to have you here for today's explainer. We're jumping right into a topic that is so widely misunderstood but absolutely defines the daily reality for millions of people. We're going to unpack the hidden internal emotional intensity of ADHD. We hear so much about attention and hyperactivity, right? But the intense emotional landscape of the ADHD brain, that is a massive, profound part of the experience. So get ready, because we are going to break down the hard science behind why things feel so incredibly intense, and more importantly, what we can actually do about it.
I want to start off with a quote that just hits right at the core of this. For adults with ADHD, that constant push can feel like living inside a pressure cooker. You hold it together through meetings, deadlines, family responsibilities, and social obligations. Then something small happens, it could be anything, and suddenly you explode. If that sounds like you, or maybe someone you love, I want you to hear this loud and clear. Your experience is incredibly valid, and as we'll see, it's actually backed by neurological science.
Okay, let's dive into our roadmap. We're going to cover 1. The pressure cooker, 2. Rejection Sensitive Dysphoria, 3. The neuroscience of meltdowns, 4. Deficient emotional self-regulation, and 5. Taming the storm.
Starting with Section 1, the pressure cooker.
Think about this statistic for a second. Up to 70% of adults with ADHD struggle with emotional regulation challenges. 70%. When most people hear ADHD, they instantly picture a hyperactive kid bouncing off the walls. But for adults, that hyperactivity doesn't just vanish, it goes inward. It gets internalized into this simmering storm bubbling just beneath the surface. You've got adults operating under this immense cognitive load every single day. It's honestly like trying to juggle flaming swords while riding a unicycle. And all it takes is one tiny thing, like a slightly rude email, to completely blow past their capacity, and the whole system collapses. From the outside, sure, it looks like an overreaction. But the data proves this is a totally natural neurological response to chronic stress overload. It's absolutely not a personality flaw. Moving on to Section 2, Rejection Sensitive Dysphoria, or RSD.
Let's define exactly what this is. Using psychiatrist Dr. William Dotson's framework, he describes RSD as extreme emotional pain experienced when you're faced with real or even just perceived rejection. We're talking about a primitive, completely overwhelming response to social threats, criticism, or even just a nagging sense that you're falling short. In fact, Dr. Dotson noted that for about a third of teens and adults with ADHD, this is actually the single most impairing aspect of their entire condition.
To really grasp this invisible struggle, you have to understand how it feels on the inside. People often describe it as this lurching, physical sensation of panic, kind of like you've just accidentally stepped off a cliff. It makes you obsessively analyze text messages, scrutinizing punctuation or someone's tone of voice for any tiny hint that they're mad at you. And when the episode finally passes, it leaves behind this deep shame and total exhaustion. Over time, it can make someone incredibly reluctant to share their opinions or take any risks at all, just to avoid that excruciating pain of being rebuffed. The most frustrating part? Your logical mind is usually right there, whispering that the reaction is totally out of proportion, but that logic is just completely muffled by a thick layer of panic.
All right, Section 3. Let's look under the hood at the neuroscience of meltdowns.
Think of the brain's prefrontal cortex as the manager. Its job is top-down control, logic, and planning. Then you have the amygdala. That's the alarm system. It is primitive, rapid-fire, and literally only cares about keeping you alive. It's like a super overzealous smoke detector that starts screaming just because you're toasting a bagel. Now, in a neurotypical brain, the manager steps in and tells the alarm system to chill out. But in an ADHD brain, the dynamic's a little different. Let's walk through the exact anatomy of a meltdown. Step 1, a stressful event happens. Boom. Step 2, the amygdala, our alarm system, fires off rapidly to protect you. Step 3, because of a reduced efficiency in the prefrontal cortex, which is a classic hallmark of ADHD, the manager just struggles to keep up. It literally cannot hit the brakes on that hyper-responsive amygdala in real time. Which leads us to Step 4, total emotional flooding. The emotions surge without anything there to pump the brakes, making them feel absolutely immediate and completely life or death.
And what complicates this is how our environments overlap with our internal state. A specific sound, a familiar tone of voice, a certain type of pressure, these things can instantly reactivate past emotional baggage. Because that prefrontal cortex manager is lagging a bit behind, the brain misinterprets these overlapping triggers as an immediate severe threat. So you aren't just reacting to, say, your boss asking for an update. Your brain is quite literally reacting as if a tiger is chasing you in that exact moment.
Which brings us to Section 4, deficient emotional self-regulation. Clinically, a lot of experts refer to this as deficient emotional self-regulation, or DESR. Let's break down what that actually means in everyday life. First, it means you have a really hard time modulating how intense an emotion gets. Second, once you are swept up in it, shifting gears out of that emotion is incredibly tough. Third, and this is a big one, you struggle to generate calming counterthoughts. Your brain just can't supply the logic needed to cool the fire. And because of all that, your recovery time is significantly slower. So the takeaway here is that emotions aren't just felt more intensely. The brain's baseline hardware for calming itself down is fundamentally impaired.
So why does this happen chemically? Well, the most robust explanation we have is called the catecholamine hypothesis. It points to a dysregulation in two major brain chemicals, dopamine and noradrenaline. In a typical brain, these chemicals tune things perfectly. Noradrenaline enhances the relevant signals, the stuff you need to focus on, and suppresses the irrelevant background noise. But with ADHD, the signal-to-noise ratio in the prefrontal cortex is weak. It's like trying to listen to a radio station filled with static. The brain fails to boost the important signals and can't tune out the noise, leading straight to that cognitive and emotional overload we talked about.
Finally, Section 5, taming the emotional storm.
Okay, so what is in our toolkit to actually manage this? Because remember, emotions are healthy. We don't want to eliminate them, we just want to regulate them. Behaviorally, tools like cognitive behavioral therapy and mindfulness are fantastic. They actually train your brain to better generate those calming counterthoughts we were missing. Lifestyle-wise, do not underestimate sleep, hygiene, and exercise. Working out actively increases dopamine and burns off stress hormones. It literally releases the pressure from the cooker. And medically, stimulant and non-stimulant medications are highly effective at enhancing how that prefrontal cortex functions. It's basically giving the manager the exact resources it needs to do its job properly.
As we wrap things up today, I really want to leave you with this thought. Once regulated, many individuals with ADHD are quick to apologize and eager to repair. They care deeply about restoring connection. Despite the intense arguments or the sudden pulling away or the meltdowns, the underlying love is still so incredibly strong. People with ADHD deeply value their relationships. The emotional storms might temporarily cloud the communication, but that genuine desire for connection, it is always right there.
So, I'll leave you with a question to chew on. How does understanding the actual neurobiology of ADHD change the way you view your own emotional storms, or maybe those of a loved one? My hope is that by seeing the real science behind this, the amygdala, the prefrontal cortex, the neurotransmitters, you feel empowered to replace any of that leftover shame with science-backed empathy and real actionable tools. You are definitely not broken. Your brain just processes the world a little differently. Thank you so much for hanging out with me for this explainer, and keep learning.